one other little event from that occasion was we had a member of our collective, his name was Grandpa Ted. He used to live here at Burwood. He was quite old, I think he was about in his 70s. And he came on tour with us. And when Shri Mataji had finished going through the group, and then she said, there's Grandpa Ted. He said, you're older than me, so you must come and sit next to me. You can't sit lower than me. And so he sort of got up and he came and sat next on the lounge on the couch next to Shri Mataji. And she said that, when I'd heard at the start of the tour that you wanted to come on the tour and your age, she spoke to Warren and she said he should come and travel with me in the car rather than going on the bus with everyone, because it's going to be quite a difficult trip physically, and I wanted to make sure that you would be okay. But everyone said, if we do that, then everyone will get maybe jealous and there'll be some bad attention on him. So everyone thought maybe he should go with the tour, and that's why I sent the message to you that did you think you could come on the tour, would you be able to cope? And you said yes, you could. So he came on the tour, and so my attention was on you the whole time to make sure that you were okay. And you went through all the tour with all these younger people, and you never complained, you never asked for any special comforts. You just did the tour with everyone else. And she said, see this man, he said he has no ego. And he's like a little boy. And that's the way I want all of you to be through your life. He's just like him, innocent, pure, and without ego. So, did you ever feel that around Shri Mataji maybe there were the other deities? Did you ever have that feeling?
Yes, what happened one night, Shri Mataji couldn't sleep in the night time. This is 2008 recently. And Shri Mataji was thinking about, she has always her attention each country. So Shri Mataji was thinking about this England. And then after that, she was thinking, and then she couldn't sleep. And then she woke up and she said, okay, I want to sit up. And Shri Mataji sat on the chair and she said, okay, everybody be quiet, sit down. I had to talk to all these deities sitting next to me. He is the Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. She asked three of us, the ladies were there, and she said, can you see? And we pulled our ear and said, no, we can't see it. So Shri Mataji said, I don't want anything, no water, no drink. I don't want anything. Just you sit there and meditate till I say, don't move. So Shri Mataji is sitting like this, and we sat here, and Shri Mataji was talking to the gods and goddesses. And she was pointing with the finger, and she pointing to the deities, and she was pointing her finger, and she was talking quite a bit loud, but we don't understand what she's saying. Even I understand Marathi, Hindi, English, Punjabi, every language, but I didn't know. I was sitting right next to her chair, just there watching Shri Mataji, but Shri Mataji talking in God's language there. And that was so amazing for half an hour. And then Shri Mataji asked her, did you see those gods? They were talking to me. And we said, no, Shri Mataji, sorry. She said, yes, they were talking to me. That's why I said you had to be quiet. And we went, wow, this is really something powerful now. You know, we were really sitting with the gods, with Shri Mataji and gods. All the gods come down, and where you can think, even if you go...
We had the backyard and we had the big house. And it was a beautiful place. All around, lovely garden, plenty of room for people to come. And after Mother's first program, or programs, we had a follow-up program there in the backyard. And then on a different day we had marriages there, and a different day we had Hava. I don't think we had the Hava on the same day as the marriages, I think it was another day. But it was just, it was all benefit to me, obviously. But it was a terrific experience just to have all these close encounters, you might say, with Shri Mataji. But never doubts about Shri Mataji. Never. Ahead by a 4x2 before we actually get the message, and I'm one of those, unfortunately.
Have you got the message?
I believe I have, Mother.
And that message is?
Be humble, surrender. Love your mother. And show your mother you love bhakti. And get a flower, because you make that commitment of love to her, and she just multiplies it so many times.
I found it fairly scary to be with her on your own. I was sort of in awe of her. I wonder what I should do. Then I thought, keep quiet, Marilyn. Don't let these things get in the way. You're sitting with the Adi Shakti, you know. Keep the brain down. So I try not to, and then I think, it wasn't, unfortunately I couldn't be in a thoughtless state, because I knew who I was with, but I didn't know how to behave quite. Occasion she got, we were in the lounge room, she was in the bedroom before, and she came out, and I'd noticed that her watch was sitting on the table in the lounge room. She came out and sat down and had a cup of tea, and then she said, "Will you go get my watch? It's in the bedroom." And I thought, it's there. But I was about to say Shri Mataji's just here, and then I thought, no, Shri Mataji knows everything. So I went into the bedroom and there was the watch. But it was a test, you see. No, that's what kept us going. I always knew she was the end of the search.
And to end, is there any advice that you'd give to people coming in Sanjo, to people that are...
Never give up. Never give up. And I found that after bad times, there were always good times. And if you did work for her, she would reward you. There was...
Going to Geneva on that occasion, I was in Oxford Street in London buying a present to present to Shri Mataji from New Zealand. And I bought this crystal plate, which I was rather proud of. I really liked it. I was clutching this and walking down Oxford Street. Suddenly I heard in my head, "Brian!" And I thought, oh my goodness, now I'm hearing Shri Mataji in my head. And then came again, "Brian!" I thought, no, that's not in my head, that's for real. And I looked across the road and there was Shri Mataji waving to me. So of course I crossed Oxford Street and she was looking for somebody to help because so CP had bought some things in one of the shops and she wanted help to shift them into the car and so on. So her apartment, she was living at the time in Victoria, not too far away from Caxton Hall, where so many of the programs were held. And so we took the purchases up into the apartment, back with a jacket. I said, "Now try this on." And I thought, oh my goodness. And anyway, I did, and it fitted perfectly. And it was a sort of sport jacket, grey, herringbone sort of pattern on it, and black lining. I still regularly wear it, and I even more touch it. I'm generous on those occasions. It was like there was nobody else in the room but you. You were the total focus of her attention. Nothing else in the world seemed to matter.
Well, first of all, I would have to say she was always extremely gracious to allow us to be there in the first instance. I've always felt it was an incredible privilege to be in any vicinity of where she is in a physical form. So it was a wonderful experience, really, to see the inner workings of, first of all, how she is on a day-to-day basis and how sweet and generous she is with us, with her time. And even if we make mistakes or we don't understand things or we're completely silly or stupid, she always loved us, and you always felt that. And she was always entirely forgiving of anything we ever did. And daily you prayed to her that you were doing the right thing, that you were looking after her in the right way. And yeah, she was always loving, and sometimes almost like a child, you know, just incredibly beautiful, and other times very awesomely like some other being that you constantly watch her on a day-to-day basis. She might be sitting in the chair and you could see her in different aspects almost throughout the day, or at different times she would be changeable without doing anything, in a very subtle way, without saying anything.
Everyone has to develop their relationship with Mother, and that's it. If you have doubts, you won't remain in Sahaja Yoga. It's really that simple. Sahaja Yoga, you know, you start with thoughtless awareness, then you get into doubtless awareness. Doubtless awareness simply means that you don't doubt your connection. If you doubt your connection, you're in trouble, and whatever is going on in your life, whatever difficulties you may face, you cannot doubt your connection, because your connection goes beyond any difficulties, goes beyond anything that goes on externally in life. Your connection is far deeper than that. And for those moments of absolute bliss you get, you give nothing up for that, even if you only get one more in this lifetime. I got married to an Australian.
What was your experience when you first met Kathy?
Well, I was quite happy about that, you know, ticked all the boxes, as one might say, and but we had quite a couple of interesting experiences, actually.
What were they?
Cut.
A unique experience with Mother, because before we went on India tour, I had a friend that I'd met when I was flying. She was Chinese. She lived in Hong Kong, and I met her in Italy on her honeymoon. Really good friends. So every time I went to Hong Kong, I would visit her. She would never come to Australia and visit me. She was a high-powered Filipino Chinese lady who was. She was an independent international businesswoman, very wealthy, and she never visited me in Australia. And maybe a month or 2 months after I got my realization, I got such a surprise, a knock on my door, and there was Emily Shee, standing at my door. She said, "I am very ill, I'm dying, and I don't know what the problem is." She said, "I could have gone to New York specialist, I could have gone to London." She said, "But I don't know what it was, but I was driven to get on a plane and come to you." And said, "I've got this friend of mine from Hong Kong, she's just arrived and she's really sick, can I bring her to the ashram?" And they were stunned, because they said, "Yes, of course." And they told me afterwards that Shri Mataji had rung the day before and said, "On my way back from India tour, I want to do programs in Hong Kong, arrange it." And they had no idea how they were going to do it. And then the next day, of course, Emily turned up. So that was one of Mother's miracles, how she works things. So, and her health improved, she was just over the moon because she was well. And so back she went to Hong Kong with a copy of the Advent and material, and completely committed to arranging this program for Shri Mataji in Hong Kong. That's how she's a very generous person. So she also said she was going to come to India to meet Mother before Mother went to...
Collective, or what the future would hold for you at that time?
The short answer is no. I can remember very vividly the occasion, and it was the 8th of September 1994. And I only know that because I came across it on a page in a file today when I was looking for other stuff. I was there minding my business, doing the washing up, as was my custom, when the phone rang. telling me that Shri Mataji had asked me to be in charge in Australia. I couldn't. So, to answer the rest of your question, I certainly had no vision at all. It was totally unexpected, and I thought, I'm not really up to this task, I don't think. If it had been me, I wouldn't have asked me to do this. I would not have.
I would suggest history's proven you wrong. So
That is for others to judge, perhaps.
others have judged. Your contribution to the Australian Collective is very significant, and I would suggest you were the only, till that point, Australian leader who was to survive the role.
I felt completely unprepared for what I had going to be able to offer people any advice about their problems. I'm totally unprepared for this counselling role. And yet the fascinating thing was that was in some ways the most rewarding aspect of my incumbency. And I say, I felt there were two aspects of this. One, I developed the utmost respect for all of these people in the collective. Shri Mataji had described them as saints, and I really felt they were. They were people struggling with their problems, struggling with their family problems, who were prepared to entrust me, just another one like them, simply because I had been delegated by Shri Mataji to be her representative. And it was a huge responsibility, but it was a huge privilege in a way, because you came to understand, just what is needed. If you're going to advance, if you're going to ascend, you need to be honest. This above all, unto thine own self be true. You can fool other people if you like, but you must be honest with yourself.
That they were asking that Shri Mataji needed people to help, to do some work at her house in Brompton Square. So Alex and I were both there, and we both, jumped and put our hands up. Yes, we'll go. We met Shri Mataji in the lounge room of Brompton Square.
What was that like?
Very different to what I expected. Shri Mataji was there and was a housewife. She was running the house. The times before I'd seen her just again briefly in Adelaide and on the tour, in Bullockart, having the self-realisation programs in villages and towns, having pujas in India. But she was in a sort of like, was a housewife. But such a majestic and serene and dignified and graceful, personality. But we went in and she welcomed us. We sat at her feet. She sat on the lounge room on the chair. Then we sat at her feet. We gave her some flowers, and I can't even remember what she spoke about. But we were just sitting there, and it was such a lovely time. It was a totally different aspect of Shri Mataji to see, and we just started. We were given some tasks to do. We went downstairs in the. It was a very timeless sort of event. You're really floating around, doing things, but really that was a very beautiful space. You're in that very thoughtless, very very centered, very in the present time. By yourself, sitting on the earth at Rari or somewhere, and just the experience of travelling around at the pujas, some really difficult times when you're really struggling, and then some great times, maybe a week after. But at that time I really felt that who Shri Mataji was, and we had a time each country group was asked to come and talk to Shri Mataji at Burwood and at that gap.
The bungalow.
And all the Australians came there, and each person was asked one by one. Shri Mataji asked everyone, "What was your experience of the tour?" And everyone said this and this, and some people said very, erudite, long, lovely explanations, and and it got to me, and all I could really say was I just really felt the awe. That's all I could say. I just really felt the awe of who Shri Mataji was and what Sahaj Yoga is. And that tour really made me feel the magnitude, really, of what it was.
Has there ever been periods of doubts for you?
Yeah, I've often asked myself, have I ever doubted? There have been periods of slight laxness, put it that way, but never doubt, which is interesting. Never real doubt.
So you feel...
Sometimes you talk inside your head and you say, how is it possible? Is she really this? But that's not real doubt. That's kind of incredulity. And no, I think the doubtless awareness, such that I hope I'm approaching, is coming at a later stage. It's very interesting because when you're with Mother, with Shri Mataji, everything is just, you know, normal and just normal and everyday. But then when you go back, you know that there's something that's indelible there. It's reached a different level when you step back. And so in a way too, you see, we all experience the same thing if you think about our relationship with Christ, because we were never contemporary that we were aware of with Christ. And so I just think that documenting, like you are now, the early stages, which you couldn't do at the time of Christ, will help people. It won't be the same. We were, you know, sublimely blessed by even sitting next to Shri Mataji. Oh, like I was sitting not far from her in India with my daughter, and we were looking at saris, and my daughter picked up a sari and said, "Oh, Mum, that's a beautiful sari. You should get that one." I said, "I can't. I don't have enough money." And Shri Mataji leant over and took the sari from me and said, "This is for you. You must get this sari."
The journey that you've learned through your long and illustrious time.
I think tenacity is a very good quality. That's how I survived in the earlier stages, was my tenacity. And I think we have to be a little tenacious with ourselves. I just wish all my successors coming into Sahaj just the greatest joy and a calm awareness and growth.
Come back. It was only about a day to go, and they had to have a sari for puja here. I was given the job. It was a Sunday, all the shops were closed. So off I took with somebody else. I think the head it was beautiful, it wasn't totally grand, and it was sort of a desert pink with silver and gold in it. Anyway, we had to deliver it to Rajeshah's apartment in Mumbai. So we'd done our job, and away we went. We knocked on the door. Guess who opened the door? My mother. "Hello," she said. "How are you? Come in. Have you had a cup of tea?" And of course we were totally bowled over, and as usual she just radiated. And then I said to her, "We have bought you a sari. Would you like to look at it? This is for the puja in Australia." And she said, "Oh yes." And then she got hold and she put it in her hand. She said, "How much did you pay for this?" And I said, "Oh," she said, too much, far too much. Then she looked up at us and she said, "You Australians love me very much, don't you?" And I just said, "Yes, we do." So those little moments that what I never forget anyway. And we were off to the side, waiting, and the marriage procession was coming down the road. And she's sitting there, somebody had garlanded her. Sitting there, and she went, "Are you married?" "No, mother." It was an Italian guy. She came over. "Would you like to get married?" "Yes." "Are you married?" It was an Indian girl. And she brought them over to her. They went to her feet. She took the garland off, broke it with her teeth, the string, made it into 2 garlands, put them on there, and said, "Go and join the procession." And I believe that marriage is still working.
And he called me into his room and he said, Shri Mataji thinks it would be a good idea if you married Phil. She wants to know tonight because she wants to work on you tonight, if you say yes. I was like, okay. What do you say? Mother wants you to marry someone you can't. Yeah. Anyway, so I went to the bedroom, and unlike Philip, who said he went straight to sleep, I lay awake thinking again, I've got to go to sleep because Shri Mataji's going to work on me. I've got to go to sleep because
You feel depressed through your...
Oh, definitely, yeah. Yes. Yeah. I actually brought along the sari, because there's a bit of a story to the sari. It looks a bit dishevelled now, but I've worn it to death, and yeah. We only had a week. Shri Mataji said we were to get married on April 7th, which is actually her wedding anniversary too. So she sent us off into Sydney to find some material to make a wedding sari. And Philip and I went round everywhere, looked, couldn't find anything. So came back to Burwood and said, Shri Mataji, we couldn't find anything. And she said, don't worry, leave it to me. Came to Surrey Hills and she said, oh, down this way. And I left and down, and they went down some road somewhere in Surrey Hills, and there was a cloth warehouse there. And she bought meters of this red satin. And at the very first public program that Shri Mataji gave in Sydney, she'd been wearing a white, completely white sari with this beautiful border around the edge. It was red and silver and the light was catching it. And I remember thinking, all the wonderful saris I've seen, this is it's simple, it's so beautiful, and that border is stunning. Anyway, I found out that Shri Mataji had unpicked it from her own sari and she'd sewn it onto this one. Or she didn't sew, she unpicked it from her sari and she got the yoginis to sew it the night before the wedding onto the sari. So I brought it along because it's
very special.
It's very special, and it just shows her complete and utter. I mean, she's working up the universe after universe, and she's worried about my wedding sari, you know.
For years we've gone overseas, and when we did the first Southeast Asia tour, I think we're all going afterwards, why didn't we do this before? Because it was so much fun for us. And the other thing that we really felt on that tour was there's no more India tours, like those India tours. And they're so good for your spiritual ascent, that experience. There's still hardships, and as we found on the last tour, it was the most robust tour out of the three that we... When I was living in Brisbane in 1985, Michael Fogarty was living up there at the time, and Matthew had just got married, and he was travelling with Shri Mataji in Dharamshala and various places. And she had a puja, I think it was in Dharamshala, and he wrote a letter to his father. And I remember he said that in the puja talk, Shri Mataji had said, one day music will be more powerful than the spoken word for the spreading of Sahaj Yoga. And I thought, I wrote that quote down. And you could see when we're in China, communicate vibrations to these seekers where you couldn't do it with a spoken word. You wouldn't attract the people, and given the nature of the country, as it stands at the moment, not so easy to spread Sahaj Yoga in a country like that. And yet with music, people got their hearts opened, their kundalini came up, but you just see how powerful the music is in getting people to that joy. And I think on the last tour, I think I said afterwards, my feeling is it doesn't matter if they don't learn how to type their kundalini, how to put on a bandhan. It doesn't matter if they don't learn anything about the chakras, but they should leave that program feeling joy. That's the one thing. They should experience that state of joy. That should be the minimum, because they'll remember that. If they go into thoughtless awareness, that's the next step, because then they'll remember that even more. Ultimately, it comes down to intention. And if your intention is pure, and if your desire is there for these seekers to achieve their self-realization, then that's all that should be there.
And she looked at me. She didn't want to ask why I came. She said, when you go to Australia, I want you to do two things. And I thought, here I go. She said, just love the younger ones and respect the elders. and everything will be taken care of. Rest, I can take care of it. And mind you, I did only those two things because I couldn't do anything. Shri Mataji, my sister, she is not well at all. She requires machine to sleep, the machine to breathe for her when she's sleeping. And Shri Mataji, she put her head back and she laughed. She roared with laughter. And she said that she doesn't require machine to breathe, she requires meditation. And you won't believe it, Chris, but what happened at that instance, my sleep apnea was completely gone. I was in Australia, my brother was in Los Angeles. It was completely gone. I said that, that's not Shri Mataji, but that her real worry is that her children don't practice Sahaja. From laughing, she just become very serious. She's very serious. And she said that they are my children. My attention is completely on them. The parents should do what they're supposed to be doing. They should follow Sahaja. They should do Sahaj practice. Rest, I will take care of them. That's what the advice given to me. And Chris, I must say to you that that was such a relief for me. Because they have got completely different goal to achieve in their life than your and my goal. He is the boss, and we are all under her guidance and kindness and everything. Even she is not on the earth in a physical form, she's still here with us. I can feel the love in every one of your heart. So I'm in heaven. So she is my mother and I'm a child from here to eternity.
And Shri Mataji said, "How are you, Mrs. Mathur?" And Shri Mataji, then my mother said, Shri Mataji, when you come, because she'd come a lot of times that time, I'm very well, but when you go, I'm not so well sometimes. And then she said, "But where do I go?" And I was just standing right, and I would never forget that. And not that I didn't know, I knew, but then my mind knew that she didn't go anywhere. And that was it. That was just, I just wanted her to be like that. I wanted her to be there whenever she wasn't there. I wanted her to be, it was what I wanted. And it was what I wanted her to be, and to me to know that she was there all the time, and not to miss her any time. I don't know whether it's almost real. It was like almost real. In my dream, we're sitting there and we're having the dal, and then somebody next to me saying, "Just pass me the dal pot," and that's Shri Mataji sitting right next to me. It was like, almost like she never went anywhere. And I suppose later in life, when I thought that I'm feeling that she's not there, I just realized that it wasn't that she wasn't there, it wasn't that my attention wasn't on her. That something in my Kundalini or myself wasn't able to just get up here because she was there all the time.
The amenities were very basic, so one morning it was quite early, getting up, we were just having our showers and getting ready, and most of us were still half dressed. And then we looked up, and then down the road from the bungalow, Shri Mataji was walking from her bungalow to the camp. And there was mad panic. We had a couple of minutes, people were rushing, trying to get changed, comb their hair. Someone found a chair, somebody threw a shawl over the chair. Shri Mataji came and she sort of sat down, and we were a few hundred people sitting around her. And she was asking many questions about how she said, "Tell me what it is about the India tour. Why do I bring you on India tour? What are the reasons why I bring you?" And it was, and everyone sort of, I think it was something that someone spoke about is when you're around Shri Mataji, the first reaction is awe, and you feel almost stunned because intellectually, yes, she's God, but you start to feel that grandeur and that magnitude of being in her physical presence. So in the first impression, you generally felt awed, and you felt humbled, and you didn't feel like you could speak. And she was sort of trying to sense that, so she was sort of engaging us and said, "No, please," she was going around, and she'd point her hand at someone and asked them for an answer, and it would sort of take them out of that sort of stunned silence and engage with the yogis. And then as she did that, people were saying all great things, all these things, but she said, but there's still one even more important reason why I bring you. And then, after everyone had said all these different things which were all true about how we were evolving and how we were learning and growing, finally she said, I bring you on an India tour so you can learn about collectivity, about how you can learn to be with other people from different cultures and different backgrounds, and to learn not as an intellectual exercise, but to feel the love of humanity and to be part of that. And when she said that, all of a sudden this sort of flash of intuition, it sort of dawned on me that yes, like in the first time in my life, because in Asia and Australia, it was still a little bit, that discrimination was still there. And then when Shri Mataji had said that, I realised that when I was on the India tours, and I was walking around the camp or doing the very things, and you were encountering Indian yogis and people from, all different American Negroes and all these different people, and everyone treated each other like a brother. And I actually felt a unity of the human spirit that I'd never felt before. And when Shri Mataji said that part of the reason I'm bringing you here so you can experience collectivity, I realised that was really one of the predominant experiences that you felt, that we're all part of this great human family, and there were really no differences. And that concept of no differences wasn't just a platitude, it was actually a heartfelt feeling that we're all part of Shri Mataji and that we're part of this great new way that human beings could interact.
As much. In your own personal experience, did you feel in any way that she was diminished or that her will was not as manifested as the time when she was speaking?
No, I would say that all of it was purely by choice. Whatever she did, she always did it with great determination and choice. She could choose to talk at one moment and choose not to talk at another. I will give you one specific example when we were in London, in UK. For example, most people would probably have seen Shri Mataji towards the end of her life as being in a wheelchair and not being able to, being the nurses pushing her around and helping her to stand and transfer to a chair. But in the UK, when she was there in 2006, she got up one morning and she just sat on the side of the bed by herself. And she said, I'll have a cup of tea now. And she started chatting and she sat up and she had the tea and she was feeding herself and talking to all of us. And then we stood her up and she started walking around the room and she smiled and she laughed and she said, I had a really great day today. And I said, yes, Shri Mataji, we all had a really wonderful day, thank you very much. And then by the end of the day, she just stopped talking again. She just chose not to. So, but she was always very alert and attentive to whatever was going on around her. And if she felt that she didn't approve of something, she would say something. And often she would be witnessing everything that was going on. And I felt like probably towards the end of her life she was withdrawing her physical being from us and just watching us more.
Shri Mataji, yeah. Do you feel it was a calling, or do you feel that, how did that come about?
I think the thing is, the reason you do it is because you feel so good. When you sing a song and you feel ripples of joy going across your heart. I was looking at one of my diaries from '95 tour or something, and I was talking about the experience of singing Jai Ganesh down at a program in Melbourne, or maybe it was in Sydney. And when you feel that absolute ripples of joy crossing your heart, and there was one song I was looking at the diary and I was saying that I was sitting there going, I can't believe if this joy could ever get even better than this. And when you experience that, I mean, it's like a drug. You just want more of it. But it's a divine drug, like it's an intoxication that she's given you. And that's the motivation. That's the motivation. You just want to get back to that again. And, oh, you're so lucky. And I said, why? And he said, I always believe that the musicians are the ones who can get closest to God. And I thought, wow, I never thought about that before. But I don't know, somehow if the heart is open and you've surrendered, somehow you can touch the goddess.
Writing music or performing, do you feel divinely inspired? Do you feel that there's a power working through you?
I've written probably about 8 or 9 songs in Sahaj, and there was only one song that came to me directly in meditation, and that was the Namaste Ganapate, which is quite a simple song. It's not a very complicated song, but that totally came in meditation. I just sat down and I had a book of ragas, and the first song was for Shri Mataji's birthday, and I looked and I knew that one of her favourite ragas was Rag Palasi, and I looked at the book, and the book had Ni Sa Ga Ma Pa. They were the starting notes for the raga. Shri Mataji. So it was a bit of a no-brainer, really.
Mataji attention every country to see. She wants it to be every person, each person be happy, enjoying each other, and she's her attention. If somebody said, Shri Mataji, my country has this problem, she won't sleep, she won't eat, she won't like, for that moment not enjoy much, and give her fully attention there. Her physical body is here, but her fully attention to that country. And she wanted to clear out that country as soon as possible. And she always thinking, oh, somebody's in problem. If some person she knows, or even Saj Yogi don't know, by the name, and she can picture that person and go, oh, that person is such a person in problem. I should sort out, I should clear out that person. How will I do it? What shall I do? Oh, leave it my food. Don't worry my food. I had to sort out this person first, or this country's problem first, or this something there. Always, even in her sleep, she will talk about the person to clear out and fix that person. Mataji said, okay, come and sit down. I want to sit down, and I sat and massaging her feet all night, from 2 o'clock till 7 o'clock, 1 to 1, Shri Mataji. And then Shri Mataji said, well, Australia is a good country. They do very hard work, and they try to make, in the past, little bit problem, but that's how the people learning. And Australia is a Ganesha's place, and the Ganesha starts, then all country will start. And then Australia, they do collectively very good effort, and they do the very nice thing. Public programs, they do very well. They do advertising very nice, and the Yuva do like to go far away and get Yuva together, or adult get together, some bhajan group get together, and they spread the Sahaj very well.
For me, it was the intersection of the arcs of trajectory of our increased knowledge and understanding of protocol, and Shri Mataji's relief that we had come to the point of being her worthy children. We got to that point, and for me, then everything changed, Then she started to talk with great affection to us, and I then started to feel, that we were part of the family, that we were worthy of being her disciples, and I think the two-way love just seemed to really start flowing then, because there were times when she was very tough with different collectives. The Australian collective seemed to escape quite a bit of it, and possibly because we'd been put through those hard hoops in the very early days. The Norman Park railway station, it was a moment of epiphany. I really had this very strong feeling came to me about the perfectibility of the human individual. I felt that we were capable of perfection. I don't think I would have ever had a feeling like that if I hadn't been living collectively in an ashram. By that stage, I think I'd been living in that Norman Park ashram. Absolutely. I couldn't have done the job without it. And that's not a platitude, it's said so often that it can sound like a platitude, but it's not. I think I would have fallen back to the line of the comfort zone, were it not for Marilyn saying, don't you think you should be doing this? She was always in the background, but it was always reminding me of things that I should be doing, well overlooked. So Marilyn was invaluable for keeping me honest in that regard. So, we've been married for 53 years. The first 40 years are the worst. But don't worry, those of you who
You go and get your bags and you have to get to Rahuri station to be on the train with Mother. So I've gone, oh, so it was like, oh, you know, so running back, and I think I went to the station where Shri Mataji came and she was on the station with Dumal, and we got on the train, and it was like beyond my expectations that I'm sitting opposite Mother in a train going from Dhulia to Bombay. Dumal had come to the station with her, and the train was taking off, and Dumal's running along the station crying, and she's saying, "Don't cry, Jamal, don't cry." And tears are running down this man's face because Shri Mataji was leaving. But she's saying, "Don't cry, Jamal, don't cry," you know. So then I had this wonderful few hours with Shri Mataji on the train. There was sitting opposite me, being very gracious and putting everybody at ease as she does. And saying, "Oh, these feet," she said, "they work so hard." She said, "Would you like, would you massage my feet?" "Of course, Shri Mataji." So she put her foot on my lap and I was massaging her feet, thinking I was doing her some favour. And then she talked about many different things, and I remember getting my perfume out of my bag because I was hot and putting it on my wrist, and she said, "Oh, what's that?" I said, "Oh, it's Joy perfume, Shri Mataji. It smells very nice. Would you like to try?" She said, "I'll try it." She said, "There was a magazine article written about me in India," she said, and it was quite negative. She said, "But this woman said that I smelled of Joy perfume," and she said, "and I really don't know what it smells like." She said, "Let me smell it." So she smelled. I said, "It's based on jasmine." She said, and she was smelling that, and she said, "Now every yogi in the world will get this perfume in their nose."
Some people say, "You didn't have your glasses."
Yeah, I didn't think I
No, you didn't have your glasses.
It sort of feels like fun,
yeah.
Sorry, he wasn't wearing that
hat. Right down in Australia, it was so hard to feel joy in your heart here. But I always remember that thing of never let go of her sari. Never let go of your hold of her sari. And I think that's one thing. If you always keep that, it was how to please my mother. And I think if you always remember that as well, what will make my mother pleased? Is what I'm doing now something that will please my mother? So I think if you keep those two things, never let go of the sari. It doesn't matter what you're feeling. If you're feeling like all the joy has gone out of your heart, never let go, never let go. And my sister, who is just a bit younger than me, she was the one who I always felt could get to joy much more easily than I could. But in that year that it was so difficult, she found it really hard to cope, and she lost a little bit of her sahaj attention or awareness. And here was me, who was not feeling any joy in his heart at all, but I still held on to her sari. And I think that's one thing that's really important, just never let go.
The other thing was the experience I had at that beach. I remember when I was in that audience and Shri Mataji said about the love. At that moment, some piece of wisdom in my mind said, never forget this moment. It said, never lose sight of the experience, the knowing, the sense of revelation that you have now, because in your life when the doubts or the troubled times come, remember this moment and remember what it felt like, and remember how you had no doubts, and that is something I have hung on to, because I think one of the reasons why we're doing these videos, and I think the importance of it, is that if we know the three great questions I think that we face in our life is where have we come from, who are we, and where are we going? And I think in Sahaj Yoga we get the answer to that, and that is that really, we come from the Param Chaitanya, we are made of the Param Chaitanya, and after our realization eventually we'll be reconnected with the Param Chaitanya. And that knowledge of our greater selves, I think, puts everything else into our life in perspective. But I think the other aspect of that is, because we're made of the Param Chaitanya, and that is where we've come from, these events with Shri Mataji, they're not in the past. They're ever present. I think the Param Chaitanya has the vibration and the impression that Shri Mataji has created is still here. And that by us going back and talking about them, we're not reliving them, but we're bringing those experiences in the Param Chaitanya, some aspect of them, back to the present reality. And I think that is a great thing, because I think once Shri Mataji said that that I'm the Chid Vilasini, which is the mirthful enjoyment of God's attention in the world. And those experiences are the expression of her mirthful presence in the world. And it's hanging on to those experiences and reliving them in our life. But everything else that we go through, all the mundane things, they just fade away. And those realities, when they come in our attention, change everything in our life at that particular moment.